All right. Well, thanks for joining us here. I'm excited to talk about songwriting. You know, I guess the reason why I wanted to have this panel is because I feel like songwriting in a lot of ways is the part of music making that we talk about the least. You know, people talk a lot about technique, like how to play this or that on guitar or drums or whatever, or they talk about production a lot, like how to do this or that in Pro Tools, or you know, what kind of microphone to use. But the part of the process that I think people don't talk about that much is the most important part, in my opinion, which is writing great songs. So that's why we brought together 4 people who write awesome songs to talk about how they do what they do and bring a little bit of attention to that part of the craft of music making. So if you guys want to join us here, then we can get started.
I thought it'd take a long way.
Now I don't feel underdressed because you guys took off your fancy jackets.
You thought it'd be nice.
It's going to be a long day. I'm dressed now, and I'm staying dressed.
Exactly. Just take off one piece, you know, throughout the course of the day, and
That's why I went
we'll be
t-shirt on
comfortable at the
here.
end of the day. Yeah.
I'm going a button at a time. I'm going to take it slow.
There you go. Cool. Well, if you could start by each maybe introducing yourselves, and so we could get a little bit of insight onto your kind of particular point of view on songwriting. Talk about, you know, I guess what in particular you guys focus on in the songwriting process. Like what, you know, some bands, one person writes everything. Do you just work on the vocals? You know, kind of talk about what in particular you focus most of your energy on in the songwriting process. Want to start with you?
Hey, what's up? I'm Budy. I play in a band called Census Fail. I mean, for me, I've been doing my role has changed as a songwriter from the beginning immensely. I mean, I used to only focus on lyrics and melodies, just because I wasn't the guy with the guitar. I didn't write. I was able to, but it just didn't work out that way. So that was for most of the band, and anyone who knows older Census Fail material knows it's pretty based upon normal song structure, pop structure, with choruses. And as of 2 years ago, we got rid of that. If you listen to anything new, it doesn't sound anything like that, specifically our new record, which I wrote most of on guitar. So it was the first time I'd ever really stepped out in front and been like the songwriter that's like, this is my vision, this is what I want to do. And I did it from a completely different standpoint of literally, I'm not interested in writing songs that are catchy, but I want to write songs that are emotionally disturbing. Meaning not turning people off, but literally cause some sort of emotional disturbance, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's sad. The whole point of the songwriting that I've sort of moved into is trying to make music that's more emotionally driven, less based upon can you sing it back. So I've had this evolution of being trying to write songs to be on the radio, and you know we had some success with that. So it's been interesting to really go from like being influenced to write in a structure and then really going no structure. I'm not interested in structure. Both are very different. I would say writing in structure, trying to write pop songs is more difficult. I mean, it's because you have to write, like you can't just do whatever you want. You have to really keep it in a box. And without the box, I've found much more freedom. But then again, it's also not going to lead to success. I know that. Like I know that our new style of music isn't going to lead to lots of success. In fact, it might lead to the opposite. But I've also embraced that what I want out of music has become different. So I've already been able to have success, and luckily I was able to parlay that into a long career, and now I'm sort of, I guess, in the what do you say, twilight? Is it like I'm about to die, and I kind of want to go out Yeah. We're breaking up. This is it. See you guys. Yeah, so that's just a little gist about where I've been.
Sure.
Yeah, so how about you? What's your kind of focus on in terms of songwriting?
I'm Dan. I sing in a band called The Wonder Years. I also do a thing called Aaron West and the Roaring Twenties, which is more of a singer-songwriter kind of troubadour project. Am I in the microphone? I'm doing that? You can hear me through the PA system? Should I be speaking a little closer? How's this? Those are two different projects. Obviously, The Wonder Years is a collaborative effort. There are 6 of us, and no song would be what it is without there being the 6 of us. It's incredibly reliant on 6 different people and 6 different opinions. And I guess later on in this project or in this meeting, we'll get into how that kind of comes about. But it's not solely on my shoulders, whereas Aaron West is a lot more on my shoulders. I play guitar in Aaron West as well. I don't just sing. And I learned to play guitar to do that project. I wanted to do that style of music, and so I had a guitar, and I thought maybe I should learn to play it. And so I did that, and that was a much different process, obviously, from Wonder Years, where we're writing the 6 of us. This was, I kind of am writing these songs, or these skeletons of songs, and then I brought it in, and Ace Enders from the Other November produced the record, and he kind of helped me flesh them out a little bit too. I've never considered myself a musician. I went to a really big high school. My graduating class was 1,100 people, like just my class. And in that, there were many musicians. A guy I grew up with all the way through elementary school is one of the most gifted pianists I'll ever meet. He went to a conservatory. He has probably a PhD by now in jazz piano. He's incredible. He is a musician. I am not. I am a storyteller. I am a performer. I am a songwriter. And that's kind of how I look at my craft, I guess.
Hey, my name is Cody. I sing in a band called Set It Off. I wasn't always a writer. I know none of us were always a writer, but my parents were in a band when I was growing up, and I loved watching them since I was a little kid, and I kind of fell in love with the idea of performing, and just watching them play oldie songs was a lot of fun. And as I got into high school, being in a band is what really gave me my first stride of confidence. It really helped me come into my own and feel out who I was. And my brother-in-law was the writer in the band that I was in, and I loved watching him do it. So he would kind of show me the ropes. We were using GarageBand and stuff. I played a little bit of guitar, and he kind of showed me how to do that. And I wrote my first song when I was 18, and just kept working on it from there. But I feel like it's such a big process of just learning from your mistakes. And I don't know if you can even call them mistakes, but just learning as you go. Different things you can try. I personally like to write with as many people as possible. I'm not the sole writer and Set It Off. I started out that way, but my best friend is Dan. He's in my band, and we went to high school together. We were also in a band together, and he wrote all the songs in high school. And so I would watch him write, and then we realized that because we know each other so well, it'd be kind of fun to write together. And there's this writing chemistry between us that I think is really, really fun. And we just keep writing together, and we'll go out to, I like to write with other writers out there. My dream is, there's my favorite writer out there, his name's Max Martin. I grew up in that 90s pop and R&B stuff with Destiny's Child and Justin Timberlake. I would take any CD that my sister gave to me and just listen to it, Usher, stuff like that. But I also grew up listening a lot to pop punk, pop rock, the new metal phase. So, oldies from my parents. So there's all these other weird influences. But I think the fun challenge in writing is to try to merge it all together and push your boundaries, put yourself outside of your comfort zone, and to see what you can do, what you're capable of. Can you write a catchy melody? Can you be emotionally disturbing? I think it's fun to try everything. But yeah, no, I'm in love with songwriting. I think it's a really fun thing, and I think there's always going to be room to improve. But that's kind of my outlook on it.
Hell yeah. Hey everybody, I'm Lzzy Hale. I'm in a band called Halestorm. My brother and I started this band 18 years ago when I was 13 and he was 10. My brother is in my band. If you see him tonight, you'll know. You'll probably hear him before you see him. But you'll know. He's not here today, so I can make fun of him. But started out, very humbly. Some of my greatest influences were my parents' music. So it's a lot of classic rock, hence the leather. Apparently, it hasn't left me yet. Started out as really the primary songwriter. I still am primary songwriter in Halestorm, but I didn't start co-writing until I was in my late 20s. And something that people, I get, there's so many opinions on this, and that's why I'm glad you mentioned Max Martin, is that you want to do all of the things, especially if you're starting out as a songwriter, because you learn so much. It's, like he was saying, push your boundaries and don't say no to anything, even if it's, oh, that's not cool, or that's not, whatever. You know what? We're all not cool.
Yeah,
we are
not
not
at
cool. So, honestly, like if somebody's like, hey man, like I met this guy, he's a really cool songwriter, you want to come over, maybe we'll write something cool, maybe we're not, maybe it's going to be a bust and we just end up having a few beers, it's like, there you go.
If you're over 21.
If you're over 21, you can have a few beers. But something you had said earlier, which is interesting to me, about everyone talking about, technique or reading music, or how to play this, or what kind of microphone to use, or what's the newest sound, or how to, get through Pro Tools without crying. What I realized a long time ago, that all of my idols and all of my influences were essentially idiots. They couldn't read music, nobody knows how to do a scale, but they connected with my heart. And what I realized through trying to write a hit and trying to be like, you have to go through all those phases. Like when I started out, it was just writing to write. I had a small room in my parents' basement that I would go for like an hour a day and just write anything that came to mind. Didn't have to be a hit, whatever. I never thought about that until I started co-writing. And then you learn, all these different things from all these different people, and then you're like, sweet, like I kind of know a formula now, whatever. But after all of that, and now after writing this latest record that we did, what I realized is that, you can write a hit and like, oh, this will be great for radio, but I don't really like the song, I don't really connect with it, whatever, and then it doesn't become a hit. I think that's just because I'm a horrible liar. But like for example, like so our biggest, the most successful songs we've had have been songs that I really enjoy, whether I co-wrote them or not. I enjoyed Love Bites, and then we would try to do other singles, or like the fourth single on the last record we did, and I won't mention the name, but we actually don't play the song because none of us liked the song. And even though it was, according to everybody, our label management, a smash hit, nobody bought it, nobody connected with it. So I think that, bottom line is that you have to do what you love, and you have to make sure that you're connected with your music and your art, and also don't be afraid to try new things. It's like, don't take anybody else's opinion like, oh, you should be that, or you should do that, or that's the right way to do it. Just try everything. So I rambled, but there you go.
Great. I forgot to mention, we're going to let these guys talk for about another 45 minutes, and then we're going to take your questions for about half an hour afterwards. So, take some notes as questions come up during the discussion. So, the first part I wanted to talk about here was what a lot of people tell me is the hardest part for them, which is getting started. So you're like, okay, I want to write something. What next? What do I do? So where do each of you guys start? Is it with a vocal hook, a lyric, a riff, or maybe an emotion or an idea that you want to express, or what's the starting point?
For me personally, not for the band, but for me, it's always one line. And so I keep a note in my iPhone notes, which once got deleted by accident, and thankfully Gmail backed that up. It's a running tally of every thought that I have that I think is worthy of being put into a song. So if I think to myself one day, I remember this one specific occurrence that we were on tour and we were heading into Central Standard Time, crossing over, and I had totally lost my voice, and I thought, man, Eastern Time really got the best of me. And I was like, that's worth putting in here, and so I just jot that little line down. And then eventually maybe I'll go through that note and find that this line and the line 3 after that and these other things are all kind of connected to this same general idea. Maybe they can end up being a song together at some point. And so I will then start to sit there and think about what kind of a song, what kind of mood is this conjuring? Do I want to write a slow song for this? Do I want to write a fast song for this? And maybe I'll write a melody, or maybe I'll get my guitar out and I'll write a little chord progression that goes with it. For the Wonder Years, I might bring that to the band and say, hey guys, I have this verse, it goes like this. Do you like it? Do you hate it? And if they like it, they might say, hey, this is really good, but because you're an abysmal guitarist, I'm gonna fix this thing for you. Yeah. And then that's our starting point, and we're gonna jump off there. Other times, I'll get to the practice space and say, I've done nothing. I got nothing, I have nothing written, and Nick will say, oh, well, that's fine because I've written this riff and see if it does anything for you, and we'll play on it for a while, and then I'll go, pull out my cell phone note and go, hey, this lyric fits this mood, and I'm gonna try to sing it over that. We can start a ton of different places with it, but for me, it almost always starts with a lyric, and a lyric almost always starts with a feeling.
Mm-hmm. I agree entirely with that. For me personally, I know I abuse my voice memo app on my phone. Like, abuse it. Like, I really believe that songwriting is based off just genuine inspiration. Whether it be a lyric, whether a melody just pops in your head and you realize, oh wow, that's not a song yet, okay. And so I'll just take out my phone. I've been known to even do it, which don't sit next to me in a movie theater because I'll literally whisper into my phone. I'm so forgetful as a person, and I know that if I don't document my idea right then and there, I'll play this mental game of telephone with myself, and by the time I actually put it down, it's slightly different than when I had the idea in the first place, which I think is really important. You know, what if that was my greatest song I could have ever had, and now I either forgot it entirely, or it's different, which sucks, you know? So if I have an idea, whether it be a vocal melody, maybe a lyric, I also have a notepad, I call it one-liners, I just put it in there. Whether it be a lyric, a phrase, guitar riff, usually what will happen is I'll have like a melody and Dan will come in with a guitar part and I'll see if it fits over that, or if I'm alone and I'm writing by myself, what I like to do is I don't like to personally play guitar while writing a melody over it because I feel like my attention's divided, so I only want to focus on the melody or whatnot, so I'll sometimes use my voice memo app as like another instrumentalist. So let's say I have like 3 or 4 chords in a row that I really, really like and I think it'll be easier to sing over. I'll hit record, I'll name like a working title, call it APMAs, whatever. Count it off, and then play it over and over and over again, like loop it for like a minute, and then stop, save it, and then play it back, and then now I just have like a guitarist in my hand, and so then I'll just play it back and start singing over it until I find a melody that really sticks with me, and then immediately stop and sing that back, and then you start layering it and kind of creating what you like. Like for me, what I think, when I know I have something that I really like is when I really like my own song. I feel like you have to be your own biggest fan. My favorite show in the whole world is South Park. And believe me, there's a point to this, I'm not just being ADD. I saw this documentary called 6 Days to Air, and I had like a revelation when I saw this because when they create an episode, they don't, you know, the only way they know that it's hilarious or a good episode is if they're laughing their asses off at their own jokes in their writer's room. You know, they don't get to be in your living room at 10:30 on a Wednesday and go, did you like my episode? You know, you can't really care about what other people think when you're writing. You kind of have to write for yourself. And if you can vibe out and smile and high-five your friend because you created a melody that you like a lot, you're probably onto something. So you have to love your own song. You really have to be your own biggest fan. That's kind of where I start out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I get super obsessive about ideas that probably aren't even good, but it'll be like in your head the entire time that you're trying to go to sleep. Or airplanes are awesome. I had an interesting situation with my voice memo. A couple days ago, we went out to eat, and I went into the women's restroom and had an idea. Not while I was in the stall, but I had an idea.
You can admit it, it's okay. Inspiration strikes at funny
right?
times.
I mean, at the most amazing times. Very, very convenient. And I'm humming and singing this thing into my phone, trying to be quiet, and you know, and these 2 girls are like, "Were you singing? Were you singing? No." Who's singing? And I'm like, sorry, me. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, there's many ways to skin that proverbial songwriter song cat. You know, it's for me. I like switching it up a lot because I'll get obsessed with. I also have I abuse the voice memos, and I have just a list of like lines and verses and just little or just ideas like, hey, I'll hear a song on the radio. I'm like, that's an awesome subject. I want to recreate that subject in my own way. So you have all these things, and then I'll end up writing like like 5 or 6 drafts. I'll just keep going back to the same idea, and then just kind of develop it into its own thing. And you know, like you said, I don't think it's done until you love it, until you're like, wow, this is awesome, and I could see this, you know, somewhere, or almost like a feeling like you didn't even write it, like, this has got to be like an old Tom Petty song or something, and then you realize it's not, and you're like, that's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, something that I feel like I should point out, when I started songwriting, I've gotten better at writing on the fly now, like in any room, any place, anytime, because we just tour a lot. That's 90% of our time. So I have to just find a quiet spot in a bathroom or somewhere to write and sit down. But regardless of where it starts, if you're just starting out and you're sitting at home, create a songwriter space. You know, what that helped me a lot. Somebody gave me that advice a long time ago. Like, so my room in my parents' basement was literally like cut off with like some tapestries, and it was just like my little, it was like a cubicle, you know, my little space, that every time I went in there, it would almost be like, this is another toilet humor thing. I'm sorry, I don't know why that's on the brain now. But you know how like every time, even if you don't have to like pee, but if you walk into a bathroom, all of a sudden you're like, I have to pee. It's kind of that same theory where it's like you keep going to that space that you create in, and then it helps you start flexing that muscle a little more. And for me, I play piano and guitar, so it can start with a riff, it can start with hey, I'm just gonna sit down at a piano today, or it can start with a line or an idea. I think the trick is to just do it, you know, just start today and start tonight, and don't, even if you think it sucks, just finish it, you know, do it over and over again.
Completely agree with that.
Buddy, how about you? Where do you start?
I mean, it changed so many times. You know, recently I used to be very obsessive, making notes, and I had decided that I was going to just stop all that. And first idea, best idea, and that really changed everything. I used to, while we were writing, recording records are really terrible for me because I'd be obsessive thinking, and I'd try to go to sleep, and I'd be thinking about lyrics and obsessive. And, you know, yeah, I wrote some really cool lyrics, but it wasn't fun. It was a pretty miserable experience. It used to be very miserable. So I took the obsessive piece out of it. I don't think about music. I don't think about songs unless I'm writing them. So I really did, you know, it worked. I mean, the obsessive stuff worked for me, where I'm kind of really trying to hone and craft and really catalog. But then I just found myself also, sometimes I'd be bringing stuff from months ago and trying to make it current, and that felt sometimes like, well, this is really good, but does it fit here? And then I just, for the last record, I mean, really, it just really was just like, I'm gonna write now, and I'm not gonna think about it, and when I think it's done, it's done. So I don't know, I mean, there's so many different, it can start with a riff, it can start with, what I've been doing a lot is hearing songs I like, and going, oh, I'm gonna catalog that, like, not to copy, but just like, oh, that's a cool riff, or that's a cool way they did that. Let that inspire me. I found that really almost helps me lyrically. I mean, I come up with lines all the time. I just so burnt out on caring about lyrics, because that's been like the whole existence of the band was me only caring about lyrics. So I got myself into a place where it was really difficult. If you know Senses Fail, a lot of the lyrics are, you know, I was an alcoholic for most of the band, and I recently came out as queer, and so I was closeted, and just dealing with a lot of physical violence when I was younger. So lyrics to me were very like, oh my God, I have to go to this place. And so it's been really freeing to do the opposite. Be like, I'm not going to go there until I need to go there to do it. And it's interesting because people ask me all the time, like, don't you write? I never write. I only write when I have to write, because it's like this monumental undertaking that I have to deal with. But in almost not writing, I'm able to have this landslide of stuff come. So I think at first it's really good to hone, flex that muscle. But then I can also see that when you've been doing it a while, sometimes it's good to step away and say stop. Like, I don't always need to be creative, because then you can almost lose a little bit of the passion and/or you're writing just to write, rather than like, this really needs to come out. So I've done both, and right now I'm finding that when it's time to come out, it comes out. And there's like this honesty and trust that you kind of develop with yourself, of knowing like what is authentic. I mean, I think people gravitate to music that is authentic at its nature, and that's what songwriting is. I've heard it described by someone as a personal myth. If we don't have mythology anymore in our culture, or religions aren't really functional, so songwriters are really putting in motifs and mythological motifs their experience. So when I started to really take that on, I started to really treat this more as a really like sacred thing, and I think it made it so much more meaningful than just a song. So I've developed from just trying to make it about, is this gonna get somewhere, to really like, can this help me personally? And I think that's what we all talked about, is what do I want to say, and is it supportive for me? And that's really what songwriting comes down to. It's a pretty selfish thing. I mean, honestly.
Well,
in a good way.
One common thread here that I think is worth mentioning is that, that all the stuff that you guys are talking about, the tools that you use, are something that everybody in this room probably has, which is like, your brain and a phone. So you don't need to spend a lot of money or anything like that, which I think is one of the cool things. We think of making music as something that's really expensive, and sometimes it is, but songwriting is almost free, so that's cool and another good reason.
You do need to know how to play an instrument. I mean, you need to know how to play guitar or piano. Like, I'm not a great guitar player. You don't need to be a great guitar player. Yeah. You just need to know. You need to know an instrument, though. Like, as we're not musicians. I don't consider myself a musician, but I can pick up a guitar. I can mess around on piano. Like, there has to be this initial phase, though, where you get interested in an instrument. I think it's hard to be a songwriter if you can't really play an instrument to the point where you can get your idea across. Because that's what I do. I mess through, I want to do this, but I can't play it. So with the band, and we get together, and I'm like, I have this idea, can you help me? Like, kind of like what you were saying. But I think it more so than anything, it starts with, you need to know how to play an instrument, or have some like introduction to either piano or guitar. I would say preferably piano. That's really just, if there is a starting place, that's like that's where I started, was I'm gonna pick up a guitar and play guitar. So, and it all flowed from initially learning how to play guitar.
Well, let me talk about or ask you guys about the next part of the process where a lot of people struggle, which is getting unstuck. So they have the song mostly worked out, 70% of the way or whatever. They've got, they've got the verse, chorus, whatever, and then they hit a wall. And I think oftentimes what I hear people say they struggle with is things like bridges, intros, outros, kind of the finishing touches of taking it from 70% to 100%. Is there one particular part of songwriting that you guys find yourselves stuck on most frequently, and how do you get over that hump?
Personally, I don't really have I'm not like, I hate writing bridges or verses are always tough. I think it's always different. And I know that writer's block is like the biggest fear of a young writer when you first start out, but then you kind of realize that all writer's block is just self-doubt. You're just stopping yourself from coming up with an idea when it's in there. You just have to do like thought vomit. Just let it come out and finish it. And like you were saying earlier, like I was before one of our like second records we were putting out. I went through this like, I got terrified because I was like, did I forget how to write songs? Like I couldn't write a melody or a lyric, and I was so scared. So I started calling all my friends that were writers, and I was like, I need your help. Give me advice. What do you do? And one guy literally said, and he's like, no, this sounds so simple, but just do it. It's like, just finish the song. Let it happen, because it's so much easier to manipulate something that's in existence than something that is not even there at all. So you just have to finish the song. If it sucks, oh well, cool, make it better. You know, you can produce your own song. But I think where you get stuck is when it's like anything that you see in front of you, you're like, oh, this is gonna be scary. Yeah, it's gonna be scary because you just told yourself it's scary. You kind of have to just, I was told this quote, again from that Max Martin guy, that songwriting and producing is 99% confidence. It's about going in there knowing I can write songs, I'm gonna write a song, here's a melody, blah, here's a lyric, and that comes with experience. You know, you have to write over and over again in your room, away from other people before you step outside your comfort zone in front of other people, I feel. If you can do it right away, that's amazing. But, you know, just stop doubting yourself. If an idea pops up, just immediately let it come out, immediately in that moment. You'll be surprised what you're capable of. I really think so.
Yeah, and don't try to like, to finish it all at once. You know, something that I got into a trap, and I still do, whereas, you know, you want everything to rhyme, you want it to be done, you want it to be cool, you want it to be perfect, you want it, you know, and that doesn't always happen. Even Tom Petty was like, oh, American Girl, I had the intro for like months, I had no idea what I was doing. You know, even like the greatest songwriters, everybody goes through it. Two things that I do, if I don't, usually it's I want to take a walk. I got to walk away and like, okay, I just got to stop thinking about it and obsessing about finishing this song. It's going to finish. It's going to be fine. So I'll do it for a walk, you know, whatever, make dinner, sometimes go to the bar. And then the other thing I do if I don't want to do that is something that somebody told me a long time ago called free writing, which is basically like step away from the song and either take your pen, paper, iPad, whatever you want to do, and write the title or even just like the subject of like whatever's missing from the song. Like, okay, I'm stuck on the bridge. So what didn't I say? Well, I'm not really talking about the end of the relationship or like where it went. Doesn't really matter. Just like put down a subject, you know, that kind of relates to the song, and then just write everything that comes into mind. It doesn't have to rhyme, doesn't have to make sense. It could be gibberish. And then, you know, do another page of that, do another page of that, and then pick through it and be like, oh, well, that was kind of a cool word I could probably use. That's neat. I haven't used that in a song. And then put that up there and just keep writing and keep drafting, if that's your thing. It depends on my mood. Sometimes I get lost in my own head. One of my biggest faults is that I will get obsessed on a single song and want to like keep going back. There's some kind of therapy in that too. Whereas I consider myself a pleasant person, but I remember my parents like telling me when I was a kid, so you wrote this song that's like really depressing and whatever, like, is that about me? And you seem like a happy kid, what happened? You know, I'm like, Mom, it's okay. So now there's this running joke with my family, like, sorry, Mom, this is gonna be disappointing to you again. You know, even though it doesn't seem like me, but it's me. But yeah, you just get it. To me, it depends on your mood. Nowadays, I'll take your approach and be like, you know what, I'm not even gonna think about it. Because then when you come back, after you're like, screw this song, you come back and then all of a sudden you start playing and be like, oh, well, that was easy, there it is. Blah, it was right in front of my face the whole time. But it's hard to be simple. You know, it's hard to just be dumb and like say what you want to say, because all of us want to be clever. We want to be like rhyming and internal rhymes and like something that's going to change people's lives. But you know, in all honesty, the best songs are the songs that when they're not trying to be anything but themselves.
I always think about it like some of the songs that I like the most. I think if I wrote that, I would think that was too stupid, you know? But somebody else wrote it, so I don't think it's stupid. So I try to like take a step back and go, well, if that was Max Martin, he wouldn't think it was stupid. Yeah. He would go with it.
Yeah.
I started meditating, and it changed my whole approach to songwriting, because when you're, you know, for most of us, our brains are going constantly, and they are. Our mind's going to go constantly, no matter what you do. You can't stop it. You know, our lives are mostly concerned with comparative thinking a lot of times, comparing what you're doing to other people, comparing the past to the present, the future, all those things, because that's how we've survived for so long, because we have comparative thinking and we know that, you know, if we watch somebody walk out into the street and get hit by a car, we don't do that, but we've kind of had this issue in our culture where we're being fed so much information and we don't know how to process it. We're not even supposed to be able to process it. I don't think our brains work in that way. So when I started meditating, I didn't realize it as a side effect. The openness, the ability, when you are creative, you have so much more available to you because while you're being creative, you've kind of quieted your mind in a way, so to allow it to focus on just the task, which is I'm trying to be creative. And creativity is really the rising up of some intention that was set, I don't know, years ago, months ago, weeks ago, days ago, hours ago. It's an intention. I have this intention to write a song like this or to express this. So what you're doing, what I found with meditation is it allowed for the space for an intention to come up and go and come into a song without interrupting it with doubt, without interrupting it with, you know, is this good enough? Am I, you know, because you can end up, you know, if you start to watch your thoughts, you start on, I'm sitting in this chair, and in about 10 seconds, I can be 30 years from now and have 3 kids, and where am I going to live? I mean, that's the nature of our minds, to mental proliferation. It's mental proliferation. So our thoughts proliferate. And when you're able, I didn't do this on purpose. I did it for other reasons, but it came into the creative space and was so like, wow, when I'm trying to focus on this, my mind isn't dragging me out of the creativity into thinking, you know, if I write this line, you know, are people gonna like it, accept it? Is it gonna be successful? Are we gonna end up? And when the band breaks up, what am I gonna do for a living? And that this is a legitimate thing. So I've really found that, like, through meditation and through it broke up all of the blocks, because whenever I had a block, I was able to also recognize, oh, this is maybe there's a reason I have a block. Maybe I'm tired. Maybe I'm just done writing. You can't be, what's that, like 1, 2, 3 funny? Has anyone seen that? 1, 2, 3 funny.
Say something funny.
Yeah, say something funny.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. You can't do that. That's not how writing works. But at times you have to, like, play this little game of, like, okay, well, I need to write, but I'm not ready, so this give and take. So mentally being prepared for the give and take, and then the blocks, when they come up, which they eventually will, is, you know, it's part of, I've learned through meditation, you know, we have this thing called the 5 hindrances, which are like doubt, anxiety, kind of depression. There's another one, I forget it. And those are basically the basic things that stop us from, they hinder our ability to do anything. And they come up in songwriting just like they do when they come up when you're deciding whether or not you want to ask someone to marry you or anything. You know, it comes up. These are standard emotions. So when you start to see them, oh, it's just, okay, of course I'm self-doubting myself because I'm trying to be vulnerable here. So when you can give yourself a break and say, that's why it's coming up, you can then go, you get rid of all the bullshit and can just focus on the, like, all right, well, what do I need to do to make this song finished or done? So.
Nice.
Dan?
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. There's absolutely, I mean, writer's block is obviously the hardest thing. I think any writer will tell you it's the worst part about writing is when you can't write. And it gets so much worse as you continue throughout your career for a couple of reasons. One is, and this is a good point, I've heard a couple people say this, is you have your entire life to write your debut record, and then you have 14 months to write every record after that. So that's difficult. Your timeline is immediately difficult. 2 is, as you've amassed a body of work, well, here's an idea I can't use again. I used it. Now, fucking scorched earth policy, burn that idea. I can't ever use that idea again. And so you're kind of narrowing down the things that you can write about and feel fresh. But I think the hardest thing is expectation and preconceived notions based on prior work. So for me, and I'm sure for everyone sitting here and for every songwriter you'll ever talk to, it's not worth it to write a record if we don't think it's our best record. Like if we walked in the studio and thought, this is pretty good. This is good. This is good, and our
I've
fans.
unfortunately done that.
This is good.
We've had 7 records. And
This is good, and our
cannot be
fans
worse.
are
Yeah, they can't
gonna
all be
like it, but it's not as good as the last one. I would go home. It's just not worth it for me.
I always
and
wanted
so
to interview a band and ask them about their record, and they'd be like, well, it's not as good as the last one, but
So I brought my little cousin with me to Warped Tour yesterday, and he was like, so be honest with me, rank your records. And we have a new one come out called No Closer to Heaven. I was like, it's No Closer to Heaven, Greatest Generation, Suburbia, Upsides. Because if I didn't think that every one was better than the one before it, I wouldn't make it. But then that brings about a whole lot more pressure. And it's difficult for me. When we were writing this new record that's coming out in a couple of months, I really, truly fucking hated myself trying to do it. Because I'm trying to write these lyrics, and I have the understanding that I need them to be the best thing that I think that I've ever done. And no one can help me. Like with writing like a guitar part, the guys can go like, oh, you know what, maybe go to this chord. Like maybe why don't we add the 7 on top or add the 9? What's gonna make this cooler? But no one else in the band is writing the lyrics. And so I'm in this, and then it becomes a spiral. Like I'm failing. I'm not just failing me. I'm failing my 5 best friends, because if I fail, then they fail. And it's not just about, oh, well, people didn't like this record. Oh, well, it's like, well, that's your fucking career. So now, we're not rich. I mean, if something goes wrong, well, that's my fucking rent check, So all of a sudden, there's all this pressure. And then on top of that, there's this realization that, okay, well, now I have a soapbox, and people are listening to what I'm saying. So how do I use it? And ethically and morally, how do I use it? What can I say that's worth saying? What can I say that I feel is important? I'm reading all these things. I'm experiencing the world right now. I'm 29. What's worth saying at 29? And there's a lot of pressure. And I think it's really interesting that Budy mentioned meditation, because I never thought of myself as meditating. But you know when the best songwriting intends to happen? The shower.
Yeah.
The shower, a long drive, a bike ride, a place where nothing else can distract you, and there's none of that like cognitive dissonance. There's no like noise.
That's what it is.
That
Actually,
is
getting
the
rid of
meditation.
cognitive-
Yeah.
So-
Because if I'm sitting in my bedroom and I'm trying to write a song and I'm frustrated, well, I'm gonna check NFL.com. I'm gonna find out, like, oh shit, like Chip Kelly's saying Nolan Carroll might start at that corner. I don't know how I feel about that. That's no good for songwriting. That's not. I mean, sometimes it is. I wrote one song about Jerome Brown, who is an Eagle, but that's not it. That's not always the best. And so definitely kind of pushing that stuff out of the way is important. Sometimes getting angry is important. And, I'm fucking angry that I can't write something, and then I wrote a song about how angry I was that I couldn't write something, and that's really great. And then sometimes, and we have this incredible advantage over all of you, and I'm sorry about that, is that the people that I admire most as writers happen to be my best friends. And so when I'm really struggling with a part, I can call Chris from Fireworks. I can get dinner with Seymour from Hostage Com. I can go over to Ace Ender's house and have them say, hey man, I think this is what you do well. Why are you trying to fight that? Like, why don't you keep doing what you do well and keep building from that foundation? And so having that kind of guidance has been really helpful. So in summation, writer's block just gets worse. Fuck you guys. Sorry.
being in a band sounds so fun, right?
These are your best years.
Yeah. You
Enjoy it
really
while you
spend a
can.
lot of time in your bedroom thinking like, wow, you super piece of shit. This is the only thing you have to do with your day and you're failing.
Well, kind of on that note, one topic I wanted to ask you guys about is growing and changing, which is a tough thing for songwriters because, on the one hand, you know, you're kind of walking this really narrow line where if you don't change enough, then people are like, oh, they just keep writing the same record over and over. On the other hand, if you change too much, then people are like, why did they stop doing that thing that I like? And some of you guys, I mean, in particular, you guys really, both of you guys have changed your sound a lot. I remember when Set It Off started, you're miles away from, you know, from that.
We've gone through some changes, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, you guys have all come a long way. Can you talk a little bit about, first of all, like when you realized you wanted to do something different than what your fans may have known you for, and in general, like where you think your creative guardrails are, if you have any, like when there's a time where you go, I have this idea, but it's not really a fit for what we do, and you guys talk a little bit about, you know, kind of that, you know, evolution of, you know, changing your sound over time and how you feel about that.
I guess, I mean, I wanted to stop making the music Sets Us Fail. I was making probably 3 records in. I mean, I never really like, after Still Searching is when I was like, all right, cool, this is cool, and I want to now go a different direction. But we, you know, as a band, you have different. I'm the only member of the band now. Everybody else is a hired musician. We all write the songs together. So they're technically part of the band, but they're technically not part of the corporate structure. So when you have we couldn't really change until basically everybody left. And it's one of these random things that happen that'll never happen in any other situation, where everybody just decided, hey, I don't want to be in a band anymore. And then I'm the only one left. And I'm like, well, now I can just write whatever I want. And I always wanted to make this kind of music. And I just went, well, I'm just going to go there because that's what I want to do. So it's complete. You're not going to find a lot of situations like it where you sort of have a group, because that's what's really the most difficult thing is like, okay, one person wants to change the sound, but then another 2 people are like, hey, well, you know, if we change our sound, people might not like us. That's not a good idea. And you kind of have this inter-band thing where you can only really go this far. You can only kick the can down the road a little bit. And it really just came up to saying, I don't fucking care what people think. And I would rather be poor playing the type of music I like than continue to make music for other people. And that's just what and I think when you take the leap, we did it in a way, you know, the first record with the change still kept some of the same structure. We still had choruses, still a lot of singing on it. It was heavier, but we still kept that like songwriting style because I didn't want to completely alienate people. The plan was to eventually get rid of that and really sort of move into more of a amorphous type stuff and make it more about like the Russian Circles type, you know, post-rocky type sort of way that they write their music. And really just deciding that I'd rather do something else than continue to make music that I didn't really feel 100% about was really the like catalyst, and just being okay with knowing that failure is absolutely part of it, that this is going to fail. It is, like, by other people's standards, because everybody, you know, other people's standards of what Sets Us Fail used to be, like, we're not anywhere close, you know, we're not anywhere near selling as many records or as successful. But I'm also writing music about what it means to be queer in a community where there's absolutely no voices. So I care way more about putting that out there in heavy music and trying to become this thing that I do care about whether or not I'll find other ways to make money. This is, and that's where the shift came. The shift came when I decided I'm no longer, I will, the other thing was I used to manage bands and I worked at Vagrant, so I had a whole job, and I was just literally like, I have this job and now I can make the music what I want it to be because I have this whole other career, which is really what I did. I sort of set it up in that way. And but actually threw that away too to go back just into making music and just completely throw myself into it and then go, yeah, because I'm going to fail and we're all going to die.
I agree completely because we're in a different position than most of you because we got people whispering in our ear, we got managers, we got labels that everyone thinks they know. They know what the next thing is going to be. Like for the last record, everyone was like, we need an Imagine Dragons song. I'm like, but if we wrote an Imagine Dragons song right now, by the time our record comes out, nobody's going to care. So you can't follow radio and you can't go into it thinking, I'm going to write a hit song that's going to be on the radio because nobody knows what a hit song is. You, like the fans and people and the pulse, that's what creates a hit song. We don't create hit songs. Like we're not like, wow, we're amazing. I just hit after hit. It's about connecting with an audience. And we made 2 records where we paid very much like attention. There were like meetings every week with A&R guys and managers like, oh, okay, well, if you can't sound too this way because, you just did that, or you can't sound too this way. And for this latest record, Into the Wildlife, we literally kicked everybody out and threw all of that out the window. And you can hear it on the record, from one song to the next, we're chasing whatever gets us excited. And because the bottom line is that you have to love what you do, because, the age-old thing is that if you get up on a stage and you're singing a song you don't like, everyone's gonna know. And if you sing a song, even if it's not the best song in the world, but you love this song and you're making a moment, people are gonna wanna buy that song. They're gonna wanna have that song because they can feel how you felt when you wrote it, and they connect with that. And I think that, to me, that's honestly, I'd rather follow that marker for success than anything else. So I agree with you completely.
And just also, 10 years ago when we were making music, when everyone was on a major label and My Chem and Fall Out Boy were the biggest bands in the world, it's not like that anymore. You're not going to play in this music scene and be on the radio and be on TRL. No. Those things don't exist. Those things don't exist. The scope of the ceiling of this music scene is so visible that I also was like, what's the point? I was already in the music scene when the ceiling was like, sky's the limit. You can be the biggest band in the fucking world. That ceiling is so low now that it changes. It should also change the way in which everybody changes their songwriting, because it's like
It's kind of liberating in a way.
well, it's liberating, but then also it's claustrophobic. So it's really if you want to be the biggest band in the world from this music scene, the chance of that happening in the current musical climate is terrible. Whereas, at least, so that's why also I've changed the whole way in which we approach the band, because you're talking about creating a moment. This song, maybe it's not the catchiest, best song ever, and but you're having a moment. That's what people are interested in now. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what your job is. Whereas it used to be like, well, you're gonna write the song that's gonna define a summer, or it's like, that's probably not gonna come from this music scene right now. Maybe in another 10 years, another time, it's possible. And of course, there have to be bands that are willing to do it to push it to the next level. But I was just like, we already got that opportunity, so I'm not even going to play that game anymore. We wrote with Greg Wattenberg. We've played the game. I played the game. We tried to do it. And the game felt like nowadays a little bit like you're not going to have the same reward for listening to managers, playing the A&R game, signing to the major label, doing a 360 deal, letting people in. Your reward is nowhere near what it once was. It used to be, you're going to be a fucking millionaire, and you're going to sell millions of records, and you're going to be all over the place, and you're going to get that. Now, that's not going to happen. So you have to almost go, well, why are we playing this game? So it's like you want to almost decide, is the game for you? And if you're going to do it, you got to do it 100%, or don't do it at all. And it leaves you sort of going, well, shit, what kind of music should we write? What's the point of writing this, pop-driven stuff when it's so difficult to get that out of this music scene, when everything is really not coming from this music scene, unfortunately, right now, where it was 10 years ago, every single band in this music scene was on a major label or had interest. You know, it's like, it's very strange, very different, and it changed the way I wanted to write songs. For sure.
I know that Set It Off evolved quite a bit. When I was 19 years old, I kind of had tunnel vision. I was only writing songs influenced by bands I was listening to at that time. And it was very pop driven. Like, it was like 2008 when we were like first about to come out, and I was only listening to like, you know, All Time Low, Forever the Sickest Kids, The Main, and it's evident if you listen to our first EP, that is who I was listening to. And you know, I was blind to that, and people were like, you sound like this band. I'm like, no, I don't. I did. And so I had a talk with this. Someone got me in touch with this producer named Jordan Schmidt. Not to like write a record with him, but just to get on the phone with him. And I really like talking to people and just being like, what am I doing wrong? Like, what is your opinion on our band? What are things we can fix? And he was blunt with me, and I loved it. And he was like, right now, because we were unsigned currently, we didn't have a label. He's like, right now you're a number in a fishbowl, hoping that a label just goes, all right, we'll take this one. And I was like, that's true. So I kind of had to take a step back and think, what was I writing for? What was I writing? You know, what were my influences? And I kind of abandoned my roots. Like, before I was in a band, like I was in college for a classical clarinet performance. Like that was gonna be my job. I was gonna try and be in orchestras, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't connecting with anybody there. No one wanted to talk about Newfound Glory. Like no one. All they was like, have you heard, you know, Beethoven? I'm like, yeah, I've heard him. Can we talk about something else? Like, it was. I wasn't happy, so I dropped out and I started doing this band. And I realized I completely abandoned my classical background. And so I was like, what do I like? And I was like, well, I like, you know, pop rock music. I like horror films, and I like classical music, and I have that background. So I tried to mix all those together. And in my head, I was like, well, you know, my chem just broke up. Maybe there's this void I can try and fill. And so we went eerie. We went kind of spooky pop rock that was heavily orchestral based. And I had a lot of confidence in it. I was like, okay, this is gonna take us to that next step. And I think it did. I think it helped us get more notoriety as a band. But my intentions were impure. I feel we were trying to be something, not just write for the sake of writing. I think my topics, you know, lyrically, were still things I really cared about. You know, I wrote about my anxiety having a panic attack in the middle of a movie theater when I was 15. Like I wrote about all these real things that I went through. But as far as stylistically, I feel like it wasn't me. It wasn't us. So with this newest record we did, I was a little scared to do this, but we kind of threw everything out the window. We went selfish. And I feel like, like he said, songwriting is kind of a selfish act. You have to write because you love it. That's why you start it in the first place. You love writing, write. Don't worry about other people's thoughts, how people are going to perceive your band. I was completely ready when Duality came out for people to just be like, fuck this band. But at the same time, you know, I loved listening to boy bands growing up. I loved listening to 90s, but I also loved listening to pop rock. I wasn't trying to be any band or any genre or anything like that. Like we're talking about getting, you know, excited about different influences. I remember we were writing a ballad, and we referenced. I like to listen. Like if I'm starting to write a song, I'm like, oh, this reminds me of this song, this song, this song. I'll listen to those songs and draw inspiration from that. We have a ballad called Miss Mysterious, and when we were writing that, I remember we listened to All by Myself by Celine Dion, listened to Boyz II Men, Whitney Houston, Bruno Mars, and I think Michael Jackson. And a Beatles song, like all of that, just because we're like, let's draw from each and every one of these genres because we like these songs. We liked those areas of music. And I think it helped us create something unique. And not because we wanted to be unique, but because we liked that music. I think once you stop caring about trying to be somebody, you don't want to be, like you mentioned the Imagine Dragons thing. If someone said, hey, let's write an Imagine Dragons song, I'd be like, no, thank you, because they already write Imagine Dragons songs.
Please don't write Imagine Dragons.
Okay. It's like there's already bands writing their own songs. Don't try to be someone else.
You kind of have Imagine Dragons hair.
Yeah.
You can do both.
I'll do the hair instead.
Well, you know, to be honest, I kind of specifically wrote this question because I wanted to know your answer to it.
Yeah, I will answer it for you.
He doesn't know who Imagine Dragons. He doesn't know who Imagine Dragons is.
I straight up like that's not a joke. I'm sure I've heard their song. I just don't know which one it is.
Summers. In particular, I want to know, like, for you, there's like so many nerds asking, like, why don't you write breakdown songs about Captain Crunch anymore? Obviously, it's been a long time since you did that.
We did do that. All right. Well, okay. I had an answer. I already had an answer, but I'll address that first.
Yeah.
Is when we started this band, it wasn't because we wanted to be a band. We were going to college, and we thought it would be fun to write some songs in the basement for literally for us and our friends to laugh about. And then I had put together a little record label, and I was going to put out a record from two of my friends' bands. Half of one of those bands is now in a band called Super Heaven. The other band, most of that band, is now in a band called Balance and Composure. But before that, they were in two bands called Bangarang and the Erection Kids. And my friend Mike and I were going to put out their split, but the Erection Kids couldn't do it, and so I was like,
The world lost something that day.
sorry. So I was like, well, I have this joke band, and we'll do the other half of the split, and then we'll put it out. So we did the other half of the split, and then I was mailing it out to people to get reviews for it because I wanted to be a good record label owner, and the reviews were coming back really positive for the Wonder Years songs, and actually a record label, No Sleep Records, was like, I'd like to put out a full length, and we were like, why? These are jokes. And so he was like, yeah, let's just do a full length. And so we just did a full length full of joke songs because we weren't a band. So who gives a shit? And then we went on tour and we were trying to play these joke songs on tour, and it just felt so hollow because it was like they don't mean anything. But the way I want to perform them is as though they mean something. And so when we got home from that tour, we were like, well, if we want to go on tour ever again, we have to write songs that we give a shit about. But so that was the first transition, and that was the transition from being not a band to being a band. And we started being a band, I think, with a 7-inch called Won't Be Pathetic Forever. Prior to that, we weren't a band. We were a bunch of kids writing songs for our friends to laugh about, and whatever. So there's this kind of like this interesting thing with songwriting where everyone's like, well, you can't listen to what anyone wants from you. You can only listen to what you want from yourself. And what's hard for me is that like I think about it like a fan because I'm a fan of this genre of music, and I always have been. Like, do not doubt for 1 second that I wasn't in the crowd the first time Budy played the Troc with the Static Lullaby in the movie Life. I was there.
One-line drawing played too.
And one-line drawing. I'm sorry to Jonah. I don't mean to. I was there. I was there. I am a fan of the whole thing. And so I remember how bad it hurt me as a fan when a band would make a record that didn't give a shit about me at all. That was like, well, fuck you, I only want to make this kind of music. And I remember being like, I feel abandoned. But I also remember how let down I felt when a song felt contrived and written specifically for me. Like, I remember listening to Take Off Your Pants and Jacket and listening to, what's the song? One Good Reason. And hearing Tom DeLonge say, like, corporate leaders, politicians, kids can't vote, adults elect them. And thinking, like, well, one, you're like 31, motherfucker. Like, two, goddamn right adults elect them. I don't want 15-year-olds to be my fucking president. What kind of bullshit is this? Like, you're just feeding this to me because you think it's what I want. And so there becomes this line that you have to walk. And I think that people think of it as very divisive. Do I make the record my fans want, or do I make the record that I want? And I think that that's kind of all bullshit. Because I want to make 100 records. Yes, I want to make a record that sounds like Coalesce. Fuck yeah, I do. Yes, I want to make a record that sounds like the Mountain Goats. Fuck yeah, I do. Do I want to make a record that sounds like Boyz II Men? Sometimes. Do I want to make a record that sounds like All Else Failed? Sometimes. There's a lot of records that we want to make. One of those records, at least one, our fans also want us to make. And so it's this exploration process of finding the record that we want, that we think that they also might want. And it's hard because you're literally pulling shit out of the ether. Like, there is no paradigm for it. There's no blueprint. There is no, the fans want this, we want this, how do we make it happen? It's kind of an exploration process every time and trying to find that. And then the other thing is, yes, I want to make a record that sounds like, kind of like Spitting and the Mountain Goats and Bright Eyes. And so I did, and I just called it Aaron West and the Roaring Twenties. Yes, Nick wants to make a record that sounds like Engine Down. So he did, and he called it Why Bother.
Did he? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you should check it out. It's really tight. It's super mathy and techy, and it's awesome. And it's really Rocket from the Crypt influenced.
Yeah.
And so if we want to do something that we know that a lot of our fan base is going to think, well, that's not a fucking Wonder Years record, well, then we still do it. We just don't call it a Wonder Years record. For a Wonder Years record, the goal is to find a record that we absolutely positively love, that we think is our best record, that we also think that you're going to absolutely positively love and think is our best record. And it's a really arduous process. It is not easy. It comes with months of work and arguing and self-doubt, but I think that we've always gotten there, and I think that our new record continues to get there, and if we ever think that we don't get there, well then, fuck it, we're gonna stop making records. At least under the name The Wonder Years.
Cool. Well, I guess that about does it for the panel discussion part of this. Thank you guys all for the great discussion there. I guess time to open it up to you guys. Got about 20 minutes to take your questions, so who would like to be first? How about you? Somebody have a handheld mic?
Got a handheld mic.
Someone
Handheld mic. Do we have the handheld mic?
We have a handheld mic.
Could we give it to
Pass
the
it
lady
over
with
to
the
her.
ombre hair? I know what an ombre is.
Okay, so this one's specifically for Budy of Census Fail. I've been a follower through the beginning, from day one. Mostly my brother showed me the music and I instantly fell in love. I've watched you grow as a musician or grow as a singer and a songwriter, and I've been through it, and I've noticed your changes, and now where you're at today with your last album, it shows that you've developed in such a way where you can actually express yourself, where like a weight is lifted off your shoulders, where lyrically your music is coming out way better and I can relate to it, or I can listen to it and feel something versus just, oh, this is really catchy. Don't get me wrong, I love every single song, but when it comes to lyrically, your lyrics have grown so much through the beginning up until now. And I was just wondering, my question was, how do you feel now writing your songs, not giving a fuck, doing what you want to do? How do you feel?
Awesome. Well, it's weird because, I of course don't want people to hate it, but it's like you have to kind of like dive off into the ether of like, well, everyone might hate this, and you have to. I was ready for this to be our last record. I was like, this is it. No one's gonna like this. I'm done. But then it turned into something that people are saying is our best record. So it's like, I guess that's the way you're supposed to do it. I mean, yeah, what I found is that now I have no barrier between what I'm willing to put into the music. There's nothing that isn't in the music that isn't inside me. So I think it's easier for people to relate because there's none of this, forced stuff. Like there's literally, I couldn't be more honest. So it's cool that comes across because that was sort of the point. A lot of our lyrics in the past have been very like trying to be like witty and trying to like, play on words and pull, and some of it's really cool. A lot of it was really cool, but it was all because I'm trying to dance around certain issues. And this record, I'm not dancing around anything. So it was super simple and easy to write because I'm like, this is what I want to say. I'm going to say it. And it's amazing that comes across. That was the point. So thank you.
White t-shirt there.
I have a question for the whole panel. Just being a musician, I'm a drummer myself, and I was wondering, how do you guys kind of cope with the outside voices, kind of like what Lzzy said, of like other record labels saying, okay, we want you guys to sound like this for this album, and then the next album we want you guys to sound like this, but this song you guys sound like this. So how do you guys, and then you guys come back to it and think, okay, well, I don't want to sound like that. I want to sound like this because this is our band, this is our technique and style, this is what we're going to stick with. So how do you guys kind of go with that as being, musicians and songwriters, just from the other voices, really?
Real quick, because I think my answer will be pretty quick for that. Our record labels never told us what to sound like, and our manager has never told us what to sound like. And if anybody did tell us what to sound like, they would no longer have a job working on our team. So we don't have that problem.
We were one time on Geffen Records. Once we were on Drive-Thru Records and we got uplifted. There used to be all this magical stuff that happened in the music industry where they'd beam your band up if they thought you were good. And we had that instant. There's this guy named Jordan Schur who ran Geffen Records for a little bit. He's responsible for Limp Bizkit and Puddle of Mud and a bunch of garbage. And he sat me down. He didn't know my name. He called me out we had to fly out to LA. We had once had a manager. He managed some very big bands. We fired him because we didn't feel like he was telling us, hey, we wrote this record. We wrote Let It Unfold You, which is everyone's favorite Census Fail record. Has probably the best songs, most well received. And we did the same thing that Soupy said. We were in this position, that we were on a major label, and we said, fuck you, let us go. And we ended up going to Vagrant, which was an indie label. The reason why we went there is because they never told us how to write a song. There is a way to go about it, though. Like, hey, like, you guys are having success. What would take you to the next level? Maybe you can work with a songwriter. We went and worked with some songwriters. We've done that. There's a way to do it that's not offensive. Like, there is a way to go about collectively as a team sort of going, hey, this worked, this didn't work.
Well, Cody, you kind of touched on getting some helpful advice from some people, and so maybe the flip side of that I would like to get your thoughts on is when it's been helpful to have those outside voices, kind of bring something to the table that you didn't think of or have that other point of view.
Definitely.
It's not always negative.
Same as Dan. Our label Equation's never told us you have to sound like this. Management's never done that, and I think with indie labels you kind of have that creative freedom. But there's going to be times where maybe you want some perspective and you want to look out and see what are the options. So I am always open to constructive criticism, I'm always looking to improve. I'm never going to be content. I just know that about myself, and I always want to become better at everything I'm doing. So if I know someone is out there like a writer who I think is killing it and may have like a different thought process than I do, listen to like a song or to my band and be like, yo, what do you think? What do you think I should do? I think it's good to be open. If someone has a suggestion, don't just because they work for somebody think, oh, well, screw you. You don't know what you're talking about because this isn't my idea. I think, as a writer, you want to be stubborn. When you start out, they're your ideas, they're your songs, they're your thoughts. But if someone can help you make something better, it's from your standards are better, then I think that's okay. But if someone's like, you have to do this and you don't feel comfortable, then tell them to fuck off, honestly. Like, write a song that you want to write and that you believe in. I mean, people can see through if you're playing a song, like you were saying, that you don't believe in. I think songs have to, stem from topics of passion. But I like to be open-minded and talk to people, and I'll probably talk to all of you guys after this about what your ideas are, because I like to pick brains. That's how I learn. I'm over-analytical as a person. When I want to get better at songwriting, I search YouTubes for my favorite writers to see if I can find them in the studio, to see like what would they do. I think it's fun to pick from other people.
I agree, and it's interesting because my comment earlier probably sounded really negative, but we've been on Atlantic Records for 10 years this year, and since '05, and have an amazing relationship with them. But you have to kind of follow your own compass, and over the course of the years, like in the beginning when we first got signed, I'm like, okay, I gotta, and I'm glad I did it, but like, you gotta listen to everything, you gotta take everything, yes, 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 yes. And what we've been calling the past couple of years has been the dawn of no. Because by saying no and by really, truly following your own compass, like, I love suggestions. I could never be an A&R guy. I don't want to. I don't know how they do their job.
No one does.
I don't think they know, more or less. But they're there for a reason, and they have a job. And when you partner up, I like to say partnering up with a company, with a management, with label, you're bringing them into your team. So like, you do something well, you're a musician. They can't get up there and kill it on stage for 90 minutes, but you can. So but everyone's after the same goal. Everyone wants success. So it's a grand balance. If like what you said, if something feels wrong to you, don't do it. If something is like, well, maybe let me try it, and then you get into it and you're like, no, this is not good, get out of it. Then you have that conversation. But in a lot, 90% of the time, in the beginning when they were like, hey, you should, maybe write with these people, whatever, I learned so much. I also got myself into a lot of weird situations and a lot of things like, that was stupid. Why did I say yes to that? But that's part of the growth process. So like you were saying, don't cut yourself off, but always keep in mind that your gut kind of knows, You know, like do I go left or right? Well, you know, if neither one of it matters, try both. Do all the things. But if something feels wrong, don't do it. Yeah.
To expand on so I didn't mean to say fuck you to everybody. just so much as like our producer, who, you know, Steve Evans has produced us, and then also has done a record with you guys, and has done Dillinger Escape Plan and Lifetime and Saves the Day and Hatebreed and Snapcase, and sometimes he'll say, hey, this song needs this. Okay, well I've hired you to help me with this, and let's do that together. It's less that what I would be upset with is someone saying your band has to sound like this band, or you have to pattern your thing after this. Have to is not good. I don't like being told what to do.
Yeah.
I have an issue with that.
I'll take suggestions, not orders.
Ask any mall security guard that's ever told me to do anything. I'll take it as well.
How about you?
Okay, wow, that's really nervous. Hey, okay, I have a question for everyone. During writing a song, when do you realize that it's either going to be like a ballad, or it's just good as acoustic, or a really heavy rock song? Like, what is the part where you discover this is what this song is meant to be?
I think as it's being created. I mean, like, I don't think, I mean, there's a time where you sit there and you're like, okay, I need to write a ballad, or you don't ever need to, but if you're at the piano and chords are coming out and maybe it's a minor key and it's really somber and you feel emotion just from playing that, and the story starts playing in your head of what this could be about, then you probably know it's going to be an emotional ballad. I won't say it's unhealthy, but I don't like going and being like, I have to write this type of song. Kind of like going back to like, you have to do this style, you have to be this song. Just, you kind of take a step back and let the song be what it is. Just hopefully it's a good song.
So sometimes you gotta wait till the last minute. When you're in the studio, you don't even know if the song, like there's songs that we thought were terrible, and then they finally get recorded and you're like, wow, this is our best song. Yeah, and you try, you know, and maybe if it's not working as one thing, you could be like, well, maybe it'd be cool if it was acoustic. You try like, you know, like, okay, the song's done, it's okay, maybe we change it now. After it's done and everyone's decided it doesn't work, you maybe try it in another format.
Yeah, it's really crazy what that can do too. Like even just if you could take one song, change the tempo to 3 different tempos, that alone will change the whole mood of everything. Like there's endless options. Yeah.
We've made the mistake before of putting out a song on a record, and then you play it live and you're like, oh, we should have done this on the record. So a lot of times, once you get in front of an audience, it's kind of clear. We've had a couple songs that started out as ballads, and then we're like, let's bump up the tempo, and then it becomes a completely different song. We've experimented. We're primarily a live band. That's 90% of our time, you know, is spent on the road. So songs just kind of evolve. Sometimes we're lucky and it's before we do a record, you know, or before we actually like put it out there in the world and it's done. Now it's stuck in everybody's mind as one way. And then sometimes we just say screw it and we change it live anyway. But I don't know. I think songs are always ever evolving. Even on this latest record that we just recorded, we've been out on the road for a little while playing these new songs, and I'll go back and listen to it just like for reference. I'm like, man, I don't even sing that in the same way anymore. Oh, what happened? It's like we live like 6 different lifetimes on one tour. You know, it's like, wow, wait, why did we record it that way? So yeah, for me, it's constantly evolving in some way.
This doesn't speak necessarily to the question, but just kind of an interesting thought in regards to that is that like, I almost feel like everyone having the ability to record everything you're doing ruins the opportunity to like road test some stuff. Like I know like the Hold Steady, last time I saw them still did it. They were like, we're gonna play a couple of new songs and kind of see how they feel. And I remember like the first time I remember it happening was the Starting Line's Surprise Surprise, and then another song called Classic Jazz, and they had played both of them live on this tour. And then I got home and there were videos of the songs on the internet, and it was like the early iterations of those songs. And it's like, well, we used to be able to be like, okay, how did this play out? Like, oh, maybe the crowd didn't respond well to this part. Maybe we can change this kind of thing and do this differently. Well, now everything you do is cast in stone forever. Yeah. So we can't really like road test. Like we won't play a new song until it's been released, because we want you to hear it produced in the studio first and not live through a shitty condenser mic on an iPhone. But it's an interesting thing that it took away our ability to kind of try out new things live, and then that's the kind of result is that is then a year after you put a record out, you go back and listen to the song and go, holy shit, this doesn't sound like how we played it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been trying to bridge that gap, especially on the last record. We did all the basic tracks live because what would happen is that we'd put out a record and then we'd play on it for a few months and then it would sound completely different. Everyone would come to the show like, oh, I didn't know you could sing. Or like, oh, I didn't know you were good. You know, it's like, oh, thanks. But it's such a different animal. You know, you go in, you know, after you've written songs and put them out before you're, and we used to do the same thing. We used to road test stuff all the time before all of this, you know, and then now it's like, well, now we got to figure out a way around that, you know.
Yeah.
I always really appreciated when I would see a live band and they play the song slightly different or rearrange it slightly. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a huge pop nerd. I love pop music, and I got to see Taylor Swift recently, and I love the song. I'm not ashamed to admit that at all. I love the song "I Knew You Were Trouble," and I'm sure some of you are familiar with how that song sounds. And she played it. It was so dark and slow, and it was on like electric guitars, and it was like it turned into a rock song. And it was so sick. I wasn't upset at all that it was different, but I think, you know, live show is another chance for if you want to keep like writing, you can continue to evolve it, and I don't think anyone will be that upset about it. But we haven't really done that yet, but I'd like to experiment with that. I think it'd be fun.
What's someone on this side of the room? How about you in the, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a singer-songwriter myself, and I also just started a band, and this is basically for Dan. How do you evolve with both the Wonder Years and Aaron West? Because like you might write one song that thinks like, hey, this sounds really good in the Wonder Years, but you might also have something that could also sound like good in Aaron West. Like, how do you evolve like having that pressure, you know?
There's a couple things that help separate the two. One is that the way the album cycles tend to work, it's like, okay, it's time to write a Wonder Years record, so write it. And so then I know things that I'm writing during that period of time have to be primarily focused on writing stuff for Wonder Years. But the other thing is, and if anyone who's unfamiliar with either of the products I do, the Wonder Years they're super autobiographical songs. They are songs about our lives. I wanted to do something different with Aaron West, which is why it's called Aaron West. And so I wrote a story, mostly through free writes and kind of journaling, and wrote a story about a guy named Aaron West and this terrible year that he had. And then I took those stories and made them into songs, and then wrote a record based on that. So it's a full character piece, and when I play it live, I do it in character, and I tell, like, all of the banter is in character. So it's kind of a totally different thing. So when I'm writing lyrics for one or the other, if I'm writing lyrics for Wonder Years, I'm writing lyrics about me. In order to write lyrics for Aaron West, I have to do a lot of like prep work, and I have to kind of storyboard things out and timeline them out and figure out how that's gonna work. So the processes are definitely very different.
I just want to say that's really cool.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
You're blowing our minds.
I appreciate it. That's why
It's like David Bowie.
we're both
Yeah.
big Eagles fans, and he caught me one day wearing a Buffalo Bills like t-shirt
Wasn't a
jersey,
fan.
and I was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, well, the Aaron West character is a Bills fan, and so I bought this Bills jersey to wear on stage because it works." But then I didn't get time to change, and I went to catering it, and he was like, "What are you doing, man?" So
I
yeah,
was
no,
very
I
confused.
really try to do the whole thing as committed to in the character as I can, at least for the time when I'm on. I'm a big wrestling fan, and so I look at it as just kayfabe, and I'm just like, when I'm on stage, it's kayfabe.
That's awesome.
So cool.
Anyone else? How about the red hair there?
We did
Let's say full red, not half.
Hi. So from what I understand, when bands start to go into the studio, or like right before they go into the studio, they have a fairly long list of songs that they've written. So what kind of process do you go through to narrow it down to decide what's going to be on the record and what's not?
We are one of the few bands that don't do that. If we go in with 13, or if there are 13 songs on our record, we probably went in with those 13 songs. We cut songs way earlier because they take so long to write, because they're so collaborative and everyone has a say about every note in the song. If we're halfway through writing a song and we're going, this isn't working for two of the members of the band, okay, now it's gone. And we'll use some of the parts, we'll scrap some of the parts, and we'll use it for other stuff. But when we get to pre-production, or when we get to the studio, the songs that we have written are the songs that are gonna be on the record.
Yeah, for us, I always have this I'll set a number goal for me personally. With Duality, we had 40 demos going in, and I wanted to narrow it down to 12. We ended up with 11, but the process of doing that is you just kind of listen to each one and see which one you like the most. Like which ones do you think are your best songs? We sit down with our producer Brandon, and we just keep going and going. And it's really hard sometimes because there's some songs that you love and you don't want to get rid of. But that doesn't mean you have to throw it away. Like if there's a song that doesn't make a record, I don't think of it as dead. I just put it on the shelf for later. And like he was saying, you can take parts from others and place it into others. I like to call that making a Franken song. There's a song. You use that too?
Oh yeah. We have a scrap yard. We have a whiteboard. We have a whiteboard, and it'll be like bridge where we drop this one beat. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like,
That's awesome.
and we're like, we should pull that bridge and then put that in D, and we're gonna use that in this song.
I've done that exact same thing. There was a song of ours called Kill the Lights, and there was a song that didn't make cinematics. And it was like all Hispanic sounding like reggaeton beat. It was ridiculous. But I really liked the bridge, and I didn't want to give up on it. So when I didn't have a bridge for Kill the Lights, and I was kind of stuck on it, so I was like, I wonder if I could just change the key of that, adjust the tempo to match this song, and if it'll work. And it pretty much did. I barely had to change the lyrics because it matched the topic too. So you can do anything with your leftover songs, and some of them, maybe they didn't make the cut for that one, but maybe you can take parts and make it into a new song that might be even better for the next record.
So, some of my favorite songs are something that we put out like as the deluxe edition for our records. But I don't know. It depends. Like our first record, we had like 60 something. Was it like Joe? Was it like 60 something songs that we had to narrow down? But it's like, but then because like you said, first record, it's like you have all these songs. So like you have to go through we just had sit down after sit down after sit down every week and then have other people come in and give us their opinion and it's starts out with okay, what songs does can we all agree on, and then it gets down to okay, well these kind of go together same thematically. You never really go into a record, we don't anyway, go into a record okay, this is going to be the title of the record and this is what we're going to be. We just kind of write to write, and then it's okay, now we have to figure it out. Whereas this latest record was different. We went in with 8 songs finished and then wrote the rest and everything, got it together as we were recording live. So there's, so many ways to do it. But that's just, I guess, how we do things.
All right, well, unfortunately, we are out of time, but thanks to all of you guys for coming and checking this out. Thanks to everybody who's on the panel. I think it's really cool that even though all 4 of you come from really different backgrounds and play super different styles of music, that I think at the end of the day, there's way more in common than there is different. And so I think that's a cool takeaway, and hopefully we'll do this again sometime.
Let's do it again.
Oh, definitely.
I'm taking over my body, back in control, no more shoddy. I bet a lot of me was lost, teasing, crossing eyes and dying.